We're back with Republican candidate for governor Tom Foley and current business reporter Eric Gershon. If we could continue our discussion about that, the permitting process and how complicated it can be, and how do you streamline that without sacrificing the very reasons that, all of those permitting processes
Sure.
are.
There are a lot of good reasons for all the regulations
right.
and the reasons for the permits. I'm totally on board and defend that, but it doesn't take 19 months to respond, and a well-managed government organization can respond much more quickly. And what I've talked about in the campaign trail is you actually put the burden on the government organization to meet the deadlines. And so for each of these permit categories, the government should say what a reasonable period of time is to grant it, and they should be very clear about what the requirements are so that people who are beginning down that road know whether or not they're likely to get approval, which is important, and that apparently doesn't exist in Connecticut, from what I've been told. Mm-hmm. And then put that time frame on there, and if the government doesn't meet the time frame, then permission is granted. And that way, the burden's on the government and the employees who are doing the work to make sure they get it done in a timely fashion.
One industry that's been in the news a fair amount the last several months that we haven't talked about is the casino industry. We've got two prominent Native American casinos in the state. What's your take on the casinos as an aspect of the economy, and what should be done, what can be done to insulate them from competition that seems to be cropping up in almost every direction? Yeah,
well, first of all, they're a large contributor to our economy, particularly in the 2nd Congressional District, so they're very important. I'm not in favor of more casinos in Connecticut, but as you point out, I think we may end up with a casino in Massachusetts and some elsewhere. So that's the competitive market working, unfortunately. But I don't think we should have more in Connecticut, but we certainly should do what we can to keep it healthy where it is.
Talk to us about why you're not in favor of more.
Well, I think the jobs that the casino business creates are not the type of high value-added jobs I'm talking about that I think long-term we need in the state. Many of the jobs that are migrating from Connecticut are very good middle-class manufacturing jobs that provide excellent incomes for families. And in many cases, those people, if we don't create high value-added jobs that those people can be retrained and hired for, in many cases, those people are ending up with lower paid jobs than what they had. And in many cases, the casinos are providing those lower paid jobs.
In what ways might you support the casinos and help make sure that they're healthy?
Well, they seem pretty healthy to me now. I don't think there's much that Connecticut can do about Massachusetts putting up a casino, for example. And it certainly wouldn't be
appropriate. Which seems to be off the table in Massachusetts for the time being.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, there'll be others, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. And so that's the competitive environment at work. I don't think Connecticut should be trying to prevent other states from putting up casinos if that's what their citizens want to do. But we need to make sure that we support it. And, we're not supporting our tourism industry. And the casinos are an important aspect of our tourism industry. We're doing nothing to promote tourism. We have a $1 a year budget for our tourism advertising. We could do more for there to bring people in and make sure they're aware of it.
Let's talk about another aspect of economic development. A standard tool in the government toolbox is offering financial incentives to corporations, either to remain in the state or to move here or to grow here. But I wonder if companies aren't often playing chicken with the state just to see if they can get a little free money from the taxpayers. There was a recent example in which the Rell administration offered a waste management company about $3 million to remain in the state and move one town over, keeping about 400 jobs here and adding about 40. Does that seem, how do you evaluate those situations? How do you not get taken for a ride by the companies?
Yeah, well, you have to be a very good negotiator, and you have to understand, as I do, how all the math works in those deals that are cut. And I think lots of times states do provide incentives that they probably wouldn't have to provide to get the people to come anyway. We have, as I said, great assets in the state. There are a lot of reasons why many employers should want to come here, even without incentives. You need to make sure that you don't waste taxpayer money, because it's really an expense. When you provide a tax incentive, I look at it as an expense. You're spending money to get someone here, and you shouldn't spend money unless unless you're going to get it back and more. And sometimes the deals are cut in ways where the money goes and you never get it back.
As a businessman, did you ever seek and receive money from a state to grow your business or to keep it in one state instead of moving it to another?
Never did, but we use municipal bond financing, which is subsidized by the municipality, but we never sought any incentives to relocate anywhere.
Your opponent, Dan Malloy, has tried to frame this in some ways as it's going to be about class, that he's going to talk to the middle-class people and you're going to talk to people from Fairfield County. I mean, is that kind of an oversimplified, too simplistic way of thinking about it?
I think so, because what I'm talking about are jobs and reducing the cost and size of state government, and therefore the burden, the tax burden on working families. So I think middle-class families want jobs, and I'll be the jobs governor. He's the governor in favor of maintaining the status quo, and I think people understand these policies haven't worked. So, I'll be the governor who's going to change things. He's sort of more of the same.
Tom, there's no candidate I've ever seen run for office, certainly not in recent times, who didn't present him or herself as a jobs candidate. So where exactly are these jobs going to actually come from? And what influence does the governor actually have over whether companies add employees or choose to move operations to the state?
Yeah, well, exactly what I said, making the government more responsive, so you aren't raising their costs and uncertainty with permitting processes, regulations, red tape, one thing or another. Providing them certainty, working with the legislature to try and have a long-term economic policy for the state so that if they make an investment here, they know they can count on consistent policies for 5 or 10 years or whatever the time of that investment is. Giving them a year. Lots of times if you ignore the business community and they don't feel as if they have an ear of the governor the same way so many other constituencies do, they feel they're out of it. They don't have the ability to have people know what they need and want. So I think reaching out and trying to make their lives easier and reduce any government-driven costs will rectify the situation pretty dramatically.
All right. Well, we appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today, and we wish you good luck on the trail. Up next, the crowded political fields are filled with third-party candidates. We'll talk about their appeal and their power coming up.